Newsfirst at 9. Headlines.
A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Katharina Chang. Let's take a look at your headlines. Malaysian Prime Minister confirms that flight MH370 ended over the southern Indian Ocean. Fishermen renew call for fuel subsidy. Treasury Secretary reveals that civil servants will have to repay the entire amount through the proposed system of making gratuity payments through banks. Several factions voiced their displeasure with Minister Rauf Hakim.
ගසට ඒ මුස්ලිම් කොංග්‍රසයට ඡන්ද ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා මේ නාටක රඟ දක්වනවා.
ඒකනේ කියන්නේ හකීම් මහත්තයා 2016 රජුන්තරන්නේ උන්නේ කියලා. 2005 හැබැයි ඒ ආයත රජුන්තරන්න බැරුණා 2005ත් බැරුණා 10ත් බැරුණා.
Stay tuned for more comprehensive details of these stories and much more after the break.
Hello there, very good evening. I'm Shane Silva.
And I'm Arundhati Mudanayaka. Starting off with a look at your developing story tonight. After weeks of speculation, frustration and a search operation that stretched over much of the eastern part of the world, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak confirmed today that MH370 had in fact ended over the southern Indian Ocean short while before the Malaysian PM's media briefing, which is telecast live on Newsfirst breaking news coverage. The BBC reported that an SMS message that had been sent out to relatives of missing passengers and crew, which read as follows.
Quote, Malaysia Airlines deeply regrets that we have to assume beyond any reasonable doubt that MH370 has been lost and that none of those on board survived. As you will hear in the next hour from Malaysia's Prime Minister, we must now accept all evidence suggests the plane went down in the South Indian Ocean, unquote.
Let's now take a look at the views expressed by Najib Razak, the Malaysian Prime Minister.
Based on their new analysis, Inmarsat and the AAIB have concluded that MH370 flew along the southern corridor and that its last position was in the middle of the Indian Ocean, west of Perth. This is a remote location, far from any possible landing sites. It is therefore with deep sadness and regret that I must inform you that according to this new data, flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean. We will be holding a press conference tomorrow with further details. In the meantime, we wanted to inform you of this new development at the earliest opportunity. We share this information out of a commitment to openness and respect for the families, two principles which have guided this investigation. Malaysia Airlines have already spoken to the families of the passengers and crew to inform them of this development. For them, the past few weeks have been heartbreaking. I know this news must be harder still. I urge the media to respect their privacy and allow them the space they need at this very difficult.
Several thousand people representing the Sri Lankan expatriate community in Europe staged a demonstration at the UN Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva this afternoon. The Europe-based United Sri Lanka organization, which organized the mass protest, said over 4,500 expatriates participated in the demonstration against the US-sponsored resolution on Sri Lanka at the Human Rights Council.
The demonstrators handed over a letter addressed to Michael Moller, Acting Director General of the UN, Geneva, and Navanithan Pillai, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, urging that Sri Lanka should be given adequate time and understanding to resolve her problems by herself without undue interference from countries that are influenced by the Tamil diaspora. They asked the world body not to undermine the domestic efforts of reconciliation. The organizers said Sri Lankans living in European nations including Italy, France, Germany, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, Norway, Sweden and the Netherlands took part in the demonstration, while Sri Lankans living in Australia and Canada also joined the demonstration. The petition submitted by the demonstrators pointed out that Sri Lanka has consistently interacted with the United Nations system and the wider international community in a spirit of goodwill and cooperation. The petition reads, quote, "We expect reciprocity in the cooperation between the UN system and Sri Lanka in order to fulfill its international obligations and commitments to bring about sustainable peace and reconciliation to all Sri Lankans." Unquote.
Head of the Tamil Nadu political party, the Dravida Munnetra Kalagam or DMK, M. Karunanidhi has appealed to the Indian central government to support the resolution on Sri Lanka in Geneva and insist on an international independent and just probe into the alleged war crimes in the island.
The Press Trust of India reports that Karunanidhi, contending that it was India which watered down the essence of the two resolutions brought earlier at the UNHRC, claimed that Indian officials at the international body were gathering support for Sri Lanka. The DMK chief also said that the US-sponsored resolution was not to the satisfaction of Tamils living the world over.
Australia's opposition spokeswoman for Foreign Affairs has called for Australia to support the call for an international investigation into alleged human rights violations in Sri Lanka, saying Australia should support its, quote, usual allies, unquote, and that the national mechanisms introduced by the Sri Lankan government had been so far unsuccessful. Despite Australia's Foreign Affairs Minister Julie Bishop attending the debate on the resolution at the UNHRC in Geneva, it is unknown whether the Australian government will back the resolution. While Australia is not one of the 47 members of the Council who vote, it is able to co-sponsor the resolution if it backs the inquiry.
Australia's The Sydney Morning Herald quoted the opposition spokeswoman for Foreign Affairs, Tanya Plibersek, as saying, quote, "Our call for the Australian government to support the draft resolution before the Human Rights Council is to reduce violations and abuses and put us in company with all of our usual allies when it comes to foreign affairs decision-making," unquote. Under a Labour government in 2012 and 2013, incidentally, the Australian government supported the Sri Lankan government to conduct their own internal investigations. However, Liberal Senator Michael Soka hinted that the Australian government may not support the external investigation, saying the government would rather work closely with the Sri Lankan government to improve accountability and progress on human rights. Australian media quoted the senator as saying, quote, "It is this approach rather than one that seeks to isolate the Sri Lankan government that we consider will ultimately achieve human rights," unquote. Suka said the government was yet to receive the final text on the resolution and would not be pushed into making a decision by the Labour or the Greens.
Speaking at a media briefing convened today, Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva, who recently returned from Geneva, commented on the draft resolution on Sri Lanka.
අපි යම් ජයග්‍රහණයක් මේ වෙනකොට ලබාගෙන තියෙනවා. ඒ තමයි දැනට ඇවිල්ලා
We have achieved some sort of victory. We have been able to change the words international inquiry that appeared on the drafts that were first circulated. We all expect that the delegates would look at these issues with open minds after listening to our rational arguments. However, this will not happen. This is completely a political process. Many countries said that they would not support this resolution if they called for an international inquiry. However, there is an issue because they can amend this resolution even at the last minute. They could make changes to this resolution by the 26th.
Coming up on the news tonight. Sri Lanka clinch an emphatic 9-wicket win against the Netherlands. Details on Sports First.
Third man, Swart, trying to do...
Moving back to local news now, protests were held in several parts of the island today calling for the reinstatement of the fishermen's fuel subsidy. Our reporters say that fish markets in several areas were closed as a result of this move.
Fishermen and members of fishery societies in Puttalam gathered at St. Sebastian's Church on Beach Road, Negombo today and refrained from setting out to sea. Small-scale fishermen on the western and northwestern coasts did not set out to sea at all today. Fish markets in and around Negombo were also closed down. Our reporters note that black flags were raised at several key fish markets.
I went to 2 or 3 markets. I even went to Jayala, but shops are closed everywhere. When I came here, this too was closed. This is a major inconvenience. I came from Miduwangada. There are no fish. We do not want subsidies. We want relief. We do not want aid.
Fishermen on the coast from Mundalama to Kalpitiya too did not set out to sea. The fishermen called for the price of raw materials to be reduced in addition to their demand for a fuel subsidy. Our reporter says that multi-day trawlers and small single-day boats in Chilau too did not set out to sea today. Fish markets in the Chilau area were also closed today.
We do not receive the subsidy. They initiate subsidies and stop it midway.
A group of fishermen and representatives of Fisheries Association in Negombo and Chilau arrived at the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquatic Resource Development today for talks. They demanded that steps be taken to reinstate the fuel subsidy.
We discussed the matter with the Minister of Fisheries, the Deputy Minister and the officials. The Minister of Fisheries promised us that he will discuss this with the Treasury and work to reinstate the stalled fuel subsidy, specifically the kerosene subsidy. We came here with the hope that our problem would be resolved, but we are not satisfied at all with the solution that has been given. Reduce the price of kerosene or reinstate the fisheries fuel subsidy, which we have not received for 9 months.
Newsfirst made inquiries regarding what was discussed from the Ministry of Fisheries Rajasena Ratna. He said that the matters would be discussed with Treasuries on the 27th of this month.
I agree to put this forward as a request to provide such a subsidy for small-scale fishermen who use kerosene. At the same time, we also briefed them on our alternative relief scheme. 1,471 fishermen from the Gampaha district and Negombo have requested that we provide various equipment as an alternative to the fuel subsidy. We also pointed this factor out to them. They too made several requests. We initiated this alternative program following discussions with the fisheries associations.
While fuel prices were hiked on 2 occasions in 2011 and the beginning of February 2012, the price of a litre of diesel was increased by 31 rupees, while the price of a litre of kerosene was increased by 35 rupees. Fishermen staged mass protests against the fuel price hike, and during the demonstration, Anthony Fernando, a fisherman from Chilau, was killed. Subsequently, the government decided to provide fishermen with fuel at a subsidized price. Fishermen charged that they have not received fuel at the subsidized price since mid-2013.
Treasury Secretary Dr. P.B. Jasundara notes that under the new gratuity payment scheme, which will be carried out through banks, state employees will be obliged to pay back the entire sum they receive. Dr. Jasundara also noted that under the previous system, state employees were only obliged to pay 60% of the sum they receive as gratuity.
During a media briefing held in Colombo today, Treasury Secretary Dr. P.B. Jasundara explained the pros and cons of the new and old systems used to make gratuity payments to state employees upon their retirement.
රජයේ සේවකයන්ට දෙනවා. එසේ දුන්නාම ඒක වසර 10ක් ඇතුළත
The gratuity payments were made on the basis that 60% would be charged over 10 years without interest and that 40% would not be charged. If the money is to be taken from banks, then these people will receive interest-free capital as their gratuity. The other factor is that the banks cannot write off 40%. The benefit of the old system was that the 40% need not be paid over the 10 years. The disadvantage was the delay. If there are civil servants who prefer the older system, then it will be implemented as is for them.
Moving on to some international news now, an Egyptian court sentenced 529 members of the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood to death on charges including murder today in a sharp escalation of a crackdown on the movement. Lawyers said the ruling was the biggest mass death sentence handed out in Egypt's modern history.
Turmoil has deepened since the army overthrew Egypt's first freely elected president, Mohamed Morsi, of the Muslim Brotherhood in July. Foreign media reports say security forces have killed hundreds of Brotherhood members in the streets and arrested thousands. Most of the defendants at today's hearing were detained during clashes which erupted in the southern province of Minya after the forced dispersal of two Muslim Brotherhood protest camps in Cairo on August 14th last year. Islamists have also stepped up attacks on the police and army since Morsi's ouster, killing hundreds and carrying out high-profile operations against Interior Ministry officials. The charges against the group on trial in Minya since Saturday include violence, inciting murder, storming a police station, attacking persons and damaging public and private property.
We believe the trial's fairness, which is a right enshrined in the criminal code, was absent in this case, and therefore we take this stand not in favor of any party. We are all aware and in agreement about the crimes committed by the Muslim Brotherhood. However, we must defend the rule of law in Egypt and ensure justice for all.
Ukraine's interim president Alexander Turchinov says he has ordered the withdrawal of armed forces from Crimea. The president announced that the decision was taken because of Russian threats to the lives of military staff and their families. Russian troops have seized most of Ukraine's bases in the peninsula, including the naval base at Fedosia. Earlier this month, Russia annexed Crimea after a referendum which Ukraine and the West considered illegal. The G7 group of industrialized countries is to consider a collective response in the crisis during talks in The Hague. G7 leaders are meeting on the sidelines of a long-planned summit on global threats to nuclear security.
The Sri Lanka Medical Association met with President Mahinda Rajapaksa this morning. The meeting took place at Temple Trees.
According to the presidential media unit, the discussions had focused on the issues creating society due to the misuse of drugs and alcohol, as well as how best to tackle such issues. The president was also briefed on the activities of the Sri Lanka Medical Association subcommittee on the control of alcohol and drugs.
A man who was arrested for raping a girl yesterday while impersonating a police officer in Madura has been remanded until the 31st of this month. The police say that the victim was 17 years old.
The suspect had allegedly accosted the young woman and a male accompanying her in the Mathura town and had asked them both to get into his jeep while impersonating a police officer. Police media spokesperson SSP Ajit Rohana said the suspect had dropped off the male companion midway through the journey and had then raped the girl. The suspect was produced before Mathura Magistrates Court this morning, where the judge ordered that he be produced in an identification parade on the 31st of this month.
Various views were expressed today on the activities of Minister Rauf Hakim.
මේ මොහොතේදී මුස්ලිම් ජනතාවගේ ඡන්ද ආණ්ඩුවට ලැබෙන්න තියෙන ඉඩකඩ අඩුයි.
The government is not likely to get the votes of the Muslim people. They know that the Muslim people would not cast their vote for the betel leaf. That is why they put Hakim's tree forward. Now they are enacting various dramas to get votes for the tree. Meanwhile, other factions within the government are shouting slogans saying that the Muslims should not be given power, so they call on the Sinhala community to vote for them. They are creating racist sentiments. The members who are elected through such activities will form a provincial council together.
මේ ජාතිවාදයන් දෙකම අහුස්සලා එකතු කරගන්නා മന്ത്രിවරු ටික එකතු කරලා පළාත් සභාව පිටවනවා.
අද මුස්ලිම් ජනතාව නැගෙනහිර මුස්ලිම් ජනතාව
Today, the Western countries want the Muslim people of the East to join up with the TNA and work together. They are attempting to make the parliament of this country dance to their tunes.
හදන්නේ දෙගොල්ලෝ එකතු වෙලා. ඒකනේ කියන්නේ හකීම් මහත්තයා 2016 රජුන්තරන්නේ උන්නේ කියලා.
That is why they are saying that Hakim will be the kingmaker in 2016. However, they couldn't do it in 2005 or 2010. If a government is created that relies on them, then the Western nations will be able to take steps against the country through them.
The Democratic Party has decided to cancel election rallies that were planned for the next few days in the Hambantota district due to threats levelled against the party and its candidates.
We had planned to hold 12 more meetings in the next few days. Everything was planned for the 4 electorates. Out of the 12, we had planned to hold 9 before today. The remaining 3 were to be held tomorrow and the day after. However, we did not get legal permission for the meetings. In several instances, we went to Hambantota. We received death threats. They threatened that we would be shot dead and that the stage would be burned. We received many death threats. We were also told that our contestants and allies would be attacked and their homes would be destroyed.
Newsfirst හානි කරනවා වැනි භයානක මරණීය තර්ජන පවා අපට එල්ල වුණා. අපි අපේක්ෂකයෝ හම්බන්තොට දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ
Our contestants carry out their campaign activities in the Hambantota district with the utmost difficulty. So we would like to inform the people of the Hambantota district that the Democratic Party will always work for the people of the nation. Despite receiving death threats, we visited the towns in the area and met the people. Even the leader of our party, General Sarath Fonseca, attended these meetings. We did this despite the danger, but we value the life of our leader, General Sarath Fonseca.
අනාරක්ෂිත ආකාරයෙන් ආවා. නමුත් අපිට අපේ නායක ජනරල් සරත් ෆොන්සේකා මැතිතුමා.
In the meantime, in Matugama, a candidate of the Democratic Party had been bound and left in his own vehicle.
Democratic Party Kaltara district candidate K.A. Nishanta was found this morning with his hands and legs tied and left in his vehicle down by road in the Aryawansagama area in Velipane. Initial investigations into the incident commenced with the aid of sniffer dogs. When we took him out, his mouth was bound. His hands were also tied. Our area correspondent reported that K.A. Nishanta is presently receiving treatment at the Nagoda hospital. The police noted that a complaint had been lodged by K.A. Nishanta's wife this morning, stating that her husband had disappeared.
He departed at around 8:30 to an election office to hand over some posters. I called him this morning at around 4. His phone rang, but he did not answer. I lodged a complaint with the Matugama police. As I was making my way to Nathupana, I received a call from my husband's phone stating he was in the car, tied up and he had been beaten up.
Leader of the Democratic Party, Sarath Fonseca, expressed the following views regarding the incident at a press conference today. There is a brutish minister in the Kaltara district. This is the doing of his henchmen. According to the reports we have received, these henchmen abducted this man and then tied his legs and assaulted him. Something happened on the way here as well. This candidate is in hospital at the moment. This is what happens when you fall victim to state terrorism.
Let's take a quick look at the views expressed on the election stage.
They know what will happen on the dawn of the 30th. There is no doubt about that. Now they are preparing for the media briefing to be held on the 30th. They have to say something, don't they? They need to tell the world something. They must say that the government used its power.
The new voters are intelligent. They look at the internet and know what is going on around the world. Sri Lanka is the only country in the world where you can murder a man and say you lost your memory and escape. A country where you take a bribe, take the file to the commissioner's office and have the case postponed by pleading with the bigwig. The youth are against this. On the 29th, prove who the fools are and who the wise are.
A young girl cannot walk on the roads. When the young son has no job and roams the streets idly, falling into various addictions, it is the mother that sheds tears at home. You can change this entire nation with a single vote. You can change the entire political system.
The people have identified the shrewd strategies of the government. Therefore, we ask everyone at this instance to think intelligently and do not fall for the shrewd strategies of this government. We call on everyone to strengthen the journey in search of democracy.
Unfortunately, we can see that the current opposition has disregarded the national need, the future of parents and children, and is engaging in election campaigns for short-term political benefits. My dear mothers and fathers, do not go behind their narrow political motives. Do not go behind politicians who target elections. Think about your children. Think about your children's future.
A rally was held in the Sandungama area in Tisamaharama under the auspices of UNP parliamentarian Sajith Premadasa.
මේ ජිනීවාහි පැවැත්වෙන ඒ ඡන්දය ජයග්‍රහණය කිරීම සඳහා කෝටි ප්‍රකෝටි ගණන් අරමුදල්.
Millions and millions of rupees have been given to international companies to gather votes at the Geneva Convention, to get their advice and bring victory to the nation. In that case, those who travelled abroad using so much money with the foreign minister must not come back to Sri Lanka empty-handed.
විදේශ ඇමතිවරයා ප්‍රමුඛ නියෝජිත කණ්ඩායම ප්‍රමුඛ රටගිය සියලු දෙනාම හිස් අතින් නම් ආපහු ලංකාවට එන්න එපා.
The treasurer of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Minister Dala Salha Peruma, shared these views on UPFA Gampaha district candidate Susara Dinal.
Susara Dinal කියන්නේ නීතිඥයෙක් බව, ප්‍රවීණ මාධ්‍යවේදියෙක් බව.
It is well known that Susara Dinal is a lawyer and a media personality. But more than all of that, I believe that he is a respected politician. We all know that it is difficult to use the word respectable when referring to a politician. But I will not deter for one moment to use that word in relation to Susara Dinal. I can say it without any fear. I wish Susara Dinal all the best for the future.
සුබම සුබ අනාගතයක් මෙවර ගම්පහ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයෙන් තරඟවදින.
A media briefing was held in Galle by the United Lanka People's Party, which consists of members of the United National Party. These views were expressed regarding the leadership of the United National Party.
The government is behaving like this because there is no proper opposition. So the biggest threat to this country is the opposition leader. Make the upcoming polls your chance to chase away this leader. Some people have already made their decision. We know this through the information we have received. A large number of UNPs say they will not go to the polling station to cast their vote. Many others are saying that Ranil Wickremesinghe should be chased away or they will vote for another party. Therefore, we would like to make this statement very clear. We are the party that can chase Ranil Wickremesinghe away. No one else can say that. What he is planning to do after the election is to take all the votes of the UNPs, even if it's 20%. He will again play hide and seek with the leadership. But this time we will not merely chase him away to Sirikota. We will go to his house down 5th Lane and we will begin our mission from the 5th of April to be rid of him forever. And we will not stop until it's achieved. If you give us a mandate, then I can say with certainty that we will chase Ranil Wickremesinghe away.
මෙදා පාර අපිට තමුන්නාස්ලා ජනවර මත් දුන්නොතින් ඒකාන්තයෙන්ම රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ එළවනවා කියන කාරණාවක් කියන්න ඕන.
පාක්ෂිකයෝ දැනගන්න ඕන අපිට වෙන්නේ හැමදාම කෙනෙක් හෙලිකන් අලියට ඡන්දේ දාන රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ.
You have to know that every time you vote for the UNP, you are establishing and strengthening Ranil Wickremesinghe and the Leadership Council. It would be as if everyone wants him there. Therefore, I ask all UNP supporters to go to these polling stations in Galle on the 29th and cast your vote for the cup. None of us want the Leadership Council and we don't want the leader. I can state with responsibility that if you give us the vote, we will begin our mission to chase away Ranil Wickremesinghe from the 5th of April.
Today's U reports were filed by Wajra Jasinga from Kapagoda and from Kiribati.
An accident took place on the Hangwal-Lakindivela road at around 4:30 this morning. The accident occurred when a rear wheel of an SLTB bus came loose and the bus veered off the road. An accident occurred on the Colombo Candy Road in Talugama at around 11 this morning. The accident occurred when a SLTP bus collided head-on with a private bus. The driver of the private bus sustained injuries and has been hospitalized.
In sports news tonight, history was created today at the ICC World T20 as Sri Lanka restricted the Netherlands to a mere 39 runs, which is the lowest ever score in a T20 international. Winning the toss, Sri Lankan skipper Dinesh Chandimal opted to bowl first. Nuwan Kulasekara drew first blood for the Sri Lankans, dismissing Steven Myberg for a duck in the very first over. The rest of the Sri Lankan bowlers then joined the party and picked up wickets at regular intervals. Netherlands were bundled out for a paltry 39 runs in 10.3 overs. Tom Cooper was the only Dutch player to reach double figures. Ajantha Mendis and Angelo Matthews picked up 3 wickets apiece, while Asit Malinga bagged 2 wickets. Sri Lanka comfortably reached their target of 40 runs in 5 overs, losing just 1 wicket on the way. Sri Lanka now lead Group 1, having won both their encounters.
Pulled away. Has it gone up-ish and out. Top edge over the keeper.
Meanwhile, South Africa registered their first win in the 2014 ICC World T20 today, beating New Zealand by just 2 runs. Now, winning the toss, New Zealand invited the Proteas to take firstly the wicket. Kyle Mills gave New Zealand a perfect start, dismissing opener Quinton de Kock for a trivial 4 runs. South Africa lost 2 more quick wickets before Hashim Amla and JP Dumini paired up to guide the team out of trouble. South Africa went on to record 170 runs for the loss of 6 wickets in their allotted 20 overs. Dumini top scored with an unbeaten 86 runs, while Hashim Amla chipped in with 41. New Zealand, who commenced their chase, got off to an impressive start with an opening stand of 57 runs. However, despite half-centuries by opener Kane Williams and Ross Taylor, the game went down to the last ball, with the Kiwis requiring 3 runs to win. Dale Steyn delivered an impressive final over and eventually restricted New Zealand to 168 runs in their 20 overs, ended with figures of 4 for 17.
And with that, we wrap up this edition of Primetime News. Thanks a lot for joining us. I'm Shen Silva.
And I'm Arundhati Mudanayaka. Good night.
Hotline 0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at newsfirst.lk.